You are all welcome once again. And then, as I said, let's continue to introduce ourselves. I can see Moses Coleman from Liberia, Ifyom from Nigeria. I will not be able to read all the names. Christine from Kenya, Konuji from Benin, Natalie from Kenya, Benjamin from Basque Country, and Mirindra from Madagascar, Kaltani from Niger, Gambia. Well, we have all multitude of people on this call, and we want to welcome you. If you still have some of your friends who are here to join, please do well to invite them that it is time and we are about to start so that they can quickly join for us to have this very important training on advocacy. Advocacy is very, very important, and we need to really get a lot of ideas about it, how to go about it, to facilitate our work as civil society actors. Great. So I think 1 minute has passed. We would like to get it started now. So once again, you are all welcome to this very important discussion. My name is Farouk from the West Africa Civil Society Institute, and I made mention that we have the interpretation icon here. So make sure, if you are not English speaking and you want to really participate in the discussion, there is provision for that. So you can listen to the discussion in French. You can also listen to the discussion or participate in the discussion in the Portuguese language as well. So everybody is on board and we welcome all of you. This very morning, we are going to have discussion on advocacy. Advocacy in the climate activism. How do we go about it? I'll be sharing my screen, but before I do that, we would like to invite our partners from the CAN Africa to welcome everybody once again on this particular topic. So our partners can, if you are on the call, will you want to give us a welcome address, please? Over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Farouk. Thank you, WACSI, for facilitating this event. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, participants. My name is Babu Karnyang. I am the Finance and Program Associate for CAN Africa, that's Climate Action Network Africa. We have a team, and then the regional coordinator, Safia Tunana, is from Burkina Faso. By the way, I'm from the Gambia, but I'm based in Nairobi. We also have Philippine. Philippine is based in South Africa. She's the comms and responsible for digital with CAN. And we also have Dr. Wafa. Wafa is based in Morocco. She is also responsible for advocacy and policy. As we said in the last session, we are doing this as CAN Africa because we have over 500 members from the civil society, from network groups, from youth groups, women and other groups who are members of CAN. And we deemed it necessary as an organization that is in Africa and also want to have the capacities of Africans built in the activities that we do. That is why we felt it is necessary to organize this training, not only to build the capacity, but also the network and also to get to know each other and the work that we do in Africa. I think it's also important that we know from these discussions that we are having, we could be exchanging contacts. CAN Africa will also be sending the application form for registration for those who are interested in membership. And then also we could also be sharing our information on what we are doing in our various countries and continents. Why we are doing this is because we've done, for example, the fundraising component of it, because we also need funding. And as Charles said in the presentation for the last time, that we don't only rely on people who are outside the continent to get funds, but we could also mobilize fundings internally, how in our various countries, in our various communities, by even people. He even give an example of the remittances that we have. It's more than the donors that we get. So mobilizing those people that gives us money back into the continent can also get us there. Today, we are doing the advocacy strategies in climate activism. What strategies can we use is also a way of us trying to know what is our strength, what can we do to convince people that are all stakeholders in this work that we do. We at CAN, we're very, very much particular about this training, and then we want to make sure that this is not the first time we are running such type of training. That is why we even went to the extent of bringing interpretation for this training. We have Portuguese, we also have French. If you're interested in joining them, please kindly join in any of those languages of your choice. Why we are doing that is because we want inclusivity. Why we are doing that? Because we want the participation of everybody into this activism. And on that note, I think we'll also like to thank our partners and our funders. This is funded by CAN Europe, that is Climate Action Network for Europe, which is also in partnership with SPAC and the European Union. So we're hoping that this will not be the last thing that we will be doing. To be able to get our people have their capacities built and being strengthened. On that note, I'd like to thank each and every one of you and welcome you to this training, and also thank my colleagues, team members for bringing up this and working so hard with WACSI to start this training again. Farouk, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Babukar. It is really a pleasure partnering with CAN Africa on this journey. That we are grateful for this really strong partnership, and we look forward for more of such for the benefit of the young Africans and others across the globe to really benefit from this kind of capacity strengthening to enable all of us to be good actors in our various sectors. So once again, I want to say that we have interpretation available. So let's make good use of it, French and Portuguese. So we want to go straight to the content or the training that why we are here. But before that, we will be collecting some information. So there will be a pre-test link that will be shared on the chat. And we want to encourage all of us to try our best to take the test as we proceed. We'll also be sharing other links as well for the registration from WACSI. So we'll be doing all those things as we progress. So let me go straight to the topic of the day, which is advocacy. But before we deal with the topic, I just want to share with you some of our expectations for this particular engagement. We want to, we have this kind of objective to gather your expectation for the training. So maybe I'll just take some 2 to 3 views just randomly. Will you want to share with us what do you want to what do you expect to gain from this engagement when it comes to advocacy strategy? There's few people, and then you can share your expectation in the chat, and then you can also just raise your hand so that I'll call 1, 2 of us share. So please, what do you want to gain from this? Yes, I can see Usu hand up. So Usu, please go ahead.
Bonsoir à tout le monde.
Bonsoir.
Je m'appelle Oussou Benjamin. Je suis un spécialiste en éthique de l'environnement. Je travaille à Grand Bénin en tant que responsable chargé des questions de APAC. Mon attente, c'est de comprendre maintenant les différentes stratégies de plaidoyer pour bien mener à à avoir des ressources pour terminer maintenant un projet. Deux. Maintenant, quelles sont maintenant les conséquences liées aux plaidoyeries au sein d'une communauté donnée? Voilà mes deux attentes. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Oussou, pour avoir partagé vos attentes avec nous. Nous allons essayer de les atteindre au cours de notre discussion. Please, do we have any other person? I can see two other hands. Abraham, please go ahead.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Farouk. Can you get me?
Yes, please.
Okay. My expectation is that at the end of this interaction, I will have acquired skills and processes for climate activism.
You will have acquired
skills and the processes for climate activism.
Good. Okay, thank you. And maybe let me just take the last one. Is there any hand up again? Just one last. Let me see if I can get a lady. Okay, Muskwe. I know is yes, Muskwe. Please go ahead, Maxwell.
Okay, can you?
Yes.
Okay, my expectation is that at the end of this interaction that we're having, is that each and every one of us to have grasped maybe something that they are going to use in their different advocacy activities. Because you know some people like us, we come from marginalized areas, so we are expecting that at least we get some information on how to launch our advocacy and stuff, so that it will be effective, so that people can see our efforts in advocating for this issue that we have at hand. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxwell. I guess it's about how to engage more people in our various communities to address the issue that we are all facing. So thank you everyone for sharing. I mean, for the few hands that we have, I could read more maybe in the chat if you have some. Then there is distinction entre plaidoyer et plaidoirie. On essaiera de répondre à cela. Another one say my expectation is to gain knowledge in climate activism and resource mobilization and get a certificate of participation. Fortunately, we had to liaise with Can Africa on that if there will be a certificate of participation. So thank you, everyone, and I will be reading more of your chat. So let me come here now and start with the topics that we will be handling throughout these 2.5 hours. We'll have 2.5 hours discussion that we'll be doing together with you. So we'll be having some introduction on advocacy. We'll try to understand what is advocacy. And then we'll also discuss problem and solution analysis, right? And some of the tactics for advocacy, as well as stakeholders and understanding power. And we'll continue with the understanding of when we talk about policy, what does it mean? And then decision-making processes, because we need to know how to make some of the decisions that affect our daily lives throughout the policy engagement. And then we'll probably, if there is time, we'll discuss a little bit about negotiation, how to negotiate with stakeholders, as well as duty bearers and right holders. And finally, we'll share with you some advocacy action planning, and then we'll see how we can all develop our plan when we go back to our various groups. So, yeah, so by the end of the session, you should be able to explore the needs of your constituent, that's your beneficiary. You should be able to also describe how policies could help achieve your organizational dreams and identify which obstacle stop you from realizing your dreams, and understand the relationship between obstacle and problems, as well as solution. And finally, we'll try to analyze problem and solution and choose the best strategies. So these are some of the things that we want to achieve by the end of this particular engagement. So advocacy. So we want to start with the word advocacy. And I want to make good use of our presence here. We are many. I can see we are about 121. I'm going to share something in the chat. It is Mentimeter, and I want all of us, to click on the link, right, that I just shared, and share with me or share with us when you hear the word advocacy, what comes to mind, right? I want to just know what comes to mind when you hear the word advocacy. So kindly click on the link I just shared and let us know what comes to mind when you hear the word advocacy. I will share my screen so that we all see our feedback here. Yes, awareness creation, organizing for action, lobbying. Yes, let's share. When you hear the word advocacy, what comes to mind? Change, policy, good. Taking charge, yeah. Operation, convincing, press of issue, influence, policy formulation, et amener à l'action, taking charge, and what have you. So we could all see from the screen, there's a big word that is kind of dominating most of the word. And the word read lobby, right? So let me come back to the content now, then we'll discuss it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts of the word advocacy. We'll continue reading them maybe later on. So just to say that, what we have all mentioned in the Mentimeter is actually what we meant by advocacy. When we talk about advocacy, it's about how you are able to influence, how you are able to bring change, how you are able to address issue in a way that your stakeholders are happy, right? You are able to engage various stakeholders and get a result at the end of the day. And how do you go about it, right? And what are some of the strategies that you adopt to be able to get this change or this result that you want for your constituent and for your community at large? So advocacy is not about demonstration, right? So let me just share this picture over here. We can all see this picture here. So sometimes when we talk about demonstration, burning of tires on the street, blocking roads, those are violent action that sometimes we take. But as climate activism, sometimes it could demand those steps, right? Those violent steps. But when we talk about advocacy, it's a way of engaging, right? Engaging stakeholders without really going to violence, right? You can just have your information on your pancart or your picture as we can see here, and then tell the authorities that these are some of the things that you are not agreeing to and you want change, right? And from there, negotiation can come in. You'll be invited, or you can also invite others so that you start taking steps, right, to see how to address the issue and solve the problem in your community. So advocacy is about lobbying so that you bring change for your community. Good. Then let me go straight to the problem and solution analysis, because mostly when we talk about advocacy, it's because we want to address an issue and we want to change a particular problem within our community or our constituency. So we should be able to know the problem first, then we can now try our best to address it. So because there is a say that if you know your problem, then you are half solution of the issue. But if you are not able to even identify the problem, how are you able to address it, right? So it is about we getting a way to know our issue very well. Then we can now look for those who matter to be able to come in and help us address this issue. So we are going to adopt a strategy, right, to help us identify a problem. And this strategy, we call it a rich picture. A rich picture is actually a diagram, right, relating your own experiences and perception to a given complex situation, right? It could be present or future. And it helps you to clarify the real or desired solution or situation you want to feel or see yourself in. And it also depicts the subjective elements such as character, emotion, opinion, and prejudice, spirit, and human nature. So the methodology that we adopt to develop a rich picture actually promote creativity, intuition, and out of the box thinking. I will share a sample rich picture. So what we mean by rich picture is, as stakeholders or as network or as a group of people, you want to address an issue, it is always good for you to see the present and the future. For instance, you want to address the issue of pollution in your community. So we want you to dream about the future. How do you want to see if that particular issue is being addressed? How do you want to see the environment look like? How do you want to see your community look like, right? So you try to come together as stakeholders, not only the leaders of the organization, but all of you, people within the constituent. You can even go to the chief, the religious leaders, the children, the women, everybody within your community, involve all of them to think, where do you see ourselves in the next few years if we are able to address this issue? Or what is the perfect situation we want to see ourselves as a community? So that's how the rich picture helps you to visualize, right? So you draw a nice picture where you have all the amenities of your community. If it is school, if it is hospital, if it is road, market, and what have you, right? The ideal situation you want to see yourself in the future. That's how you help everybody to come and draw it. So once you have that picture, then it helps you to take steps, to take action in order for you to achieve this dream that you have for your community, for your country, right? So this is how we do it. And we want to encourage all of us, after this engagement, we should be able to sit together to dream about the changes we want to see in our various communities through this methodology that we are just sharing with you. So I want to play a video now. With your permission, again, let me try and share the video here now. Okay. I will come for the questions, so please just note your question down or your comments down, and when it's time, you can just make good use of the chat, or you can raise your hand and talk. So I'm going to play a video. I want to encourage all of us to pay attention to it. It's gonna take some few minutes, and then when we come back, we'll continue with the discussion. Thank you. Let me see. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you. So we are at the end of our video. I hope you can hear me and then you're able to make meaningful connection through the video that we just watched. I would like to take just few hands about your reflection on the video. What did you get from the video we just played? Is this something that inspired you? Is this something that you think could change something also in your way of doing as activists? Yes, I can see two hands up. Go for them. Also, Leo, since you have spoken, let me go to the iPhone name and then we'll come to you later. So the person with the name iPhone and your hand is up, please go ahead and share with us your thoughts. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I didn't know that it's iPhone here. I just downloaded the app yesterday. I will change my name later. Sorry. Well, my name is Matilde Buenaus. I'm an independent consultant from Mozambique, and it's been a pleasure to be here. A very nice, interesting training, by the way. Like from since here, I'm delighted about the knowledge. Well, commenting about the video, first of all, I saw that the video showed us like two ways or two final destinations. First we saw how the girl ended up like bad with bad actions that the world is most of the people are doing lately, and then showed us the good way of doing the.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you so much for sharing. That's very interesting to know that you really pay attention to it. So let's go to the second person, Usu. What do you take from the video?
The things. So I believe that this video, one of the things that this video can show us is that we can change the world, and one of the things that we do.
I don't know if it is from my end. It's like our friend's line is breaking. And yeah, so let's go to Usu. Usu, please go ahead. What do you take from the video that we just played? Can you share your experience? Go on.
Yeah, good afternoon. Please, my take from
Yes.
the video, I've realized that there are some critical ages that needs to be tackled in getting over certain issues or certain things that come into the life of the young girls. And I think from the video, I think 12 years thereabout. So moving forward, I think those ages to be taken into consideration in advocacy plans. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for sharing. Yes, in fact, the video is actually telling us that if you don't take action, things will happen just naturally. But as advocates, as activists, this is a call to us to take action, right? If not, things will happen just the way others want it to happen. So there's two ways. If you want a good thing for your community and your constituent, you need to take action. So in summary, for me, the video is about a call to action for us to be aware of it and take action so that things that we want happen. So we'll proceed now on how to make a problem tree. We have discussed it, and I made mention that the identification of the issue help you to actually solve your problem halfway. So how do you identify the problem that you are facing as activists? So for these two, you want to share with you why these two, why the problem tree analysis, right? Because it involves participation, because it brings many stakeholders together from multiple viewpoints, right? And then, as I said, it's not only limited to the leaders. You have to involve all the people within your constituency. It could be children, it could be parents, it could be school children, it could be teachers, it could be ministers or district assembly authorities or what have you. Everybody needs to be involved to share their view on the problem that you want to address, right? So how do we do it? When you see a tree, we have three parts of a tree. The middle part of the tree is where we put the core problem, what we want to address. And then the above the tree, where we have the branches, are where we can put the effects of the problem that we have. I will share a sample problem tree with all of us here so that we have a look at it. So you have to ask yourself, why this occur? I mean, why those problems occur? And then under the trees, where we have the roots, is where we have to try to find out the real causes of the problem. Why, what caused the problem to happen? You get it? So we should be able, when you do the tree, when you have a full tree, then the roots help you to identify the causes of the problem, while the branches or the above one help you to get the effects of the problem. So I'm gonna share with us here a sample problem tree here. So in fact, it's because I'm not good in drawing, it should be in a tree, right? So that we see the full tree with the branches and then the root, as well as the middle parts of it. So here, where we have core problem, for instance, is the middle of the tree. Many girls do not go to school. So let's assume this is the problem that we want to address in our community. Girls don't go to school. Then, as part of the exercise, you try to find out why is it that girls don't go to school. Then that helps you to get the root causes of why girls don't go to school. Then you have cause 2A here, that's read, girls get pregnant and married early. So it could be that they don't go to school because they get pregnant and they marry early. Or it could also be that it's because the school is far away. So that's why they don't go to school. Or it could also be, the cause one here is girls work at home. And because they work at home, they don't go to school. So you could see in this sample, we are trying to identify why girls don't go to school. And that's why it is important to have multiple views, because you alone, you may not be able to identify the reason why those things are happening. So you need consultation, you need other people's view to be able to tell you the issue we are trying to address is because of A, B, C, D. Then you all put it together, and then you get to really appreciate the problem very well. So this is an example of a core problem that we try to address. And you also need to proceed further to now ask yourself, if they don't go to school, what happened? What is the effect of that problem? What is the effect of girls not going to school? So you could have answers. I mean, so in your group, when you are discussing, you ask, if, for instance, our issue is community A in this particular location, the air that we breathe, I mean, we don't breathe clean air. For instance, the community is polluted. Then you try to find out why is our community polluted? Is it because we don't manage our rubbish, our garbage very well? Or is it because we are unable, or community leaders or district authorities are unable to make good gutters for us? Is it because we don't have dustbins? Is it because, you see, so you try to find out why that problem is happening. And then you now move further to check the effect. So what are the effects of it? For instance, on this particular case, the effect would be that if girls don't go to school, it means girls will not have jobs at the end of the day. And then they will not have income. And then the other effect could also be that if the girls don't go to school, then they will end up being prostitutes. Girls will be in prostitution. Or if they don't go to school, it means they will drop out of school very early. So this could be some of the effects that the problem could bring. And then in our case as climate activists, if our problem is about the environmental degradation, for instance, in Ghana, we are talking about this galamsey, the illegal mining in Ghana. So if that's the issue that we want to address, we should be able to sit together as stakeholders to find out why we have the problem of illegal mining in our community, right? So when we have the causes, so maybe because there is no job for those who are involved in the illegal mining, or maybe they do that because they want income, or they do that because of this and that. So we try to find out why illegal mining, and then the effect of it. If the problems are more than what we are getting at the end of the day, we need to take action and address it. So that's the importance of this problem tree analysis. And we will try, as we talk about the rich picture, you need to also look at it in a positive way. For instance, imagine that girls go to school. So we have problem analysis and then solution tree analysis. So you have to discuss the ideal situation after you've done the problem analysis. Now you think of solution. Imagine girls go to school. What will happen? It's still in the rich picture scenario, right? So you discuss the ideal situation. You use your dream. So here you make people really to dream big, to see the ideal situation, to put their vision on how they would like to see things happening, right? Going further in their community or whatever they find themselves. So with the same scenario that we have used, so the middle part, the middle part of the tree, the stem, is where you put your vision. Where do you, for instance, the issue of girls don't go to school. Now girls go to school. That's the vision that you have for your community. So you put that one under the stem. And then you write the solution under the vision of the solution tree. That will be the root. So if they go to school, what are some of the things that they will be able to do? What are some of the solutions that they will bring to the community, right? And then the above one, the branches, you help us to differentiate what this solution will bring in the community, the effect or the hope that you want to see happening in the community when this problem is being addressed. So I want to share this other video once again so that we look at the solution as we talked about. It's gonna take some few minutes, and I'm pleading with us all to pay attention. When we come back, we'll discuss it once again.
Even though we...
So I'm starting the video now, right?
Face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
Okay, thank you so much, Melissa, for stepping in. So we will continue from here. So we had a very nice video. I hope we're able to really listen to the discussion, to follow the video. So I'll take just one or two hands quickly. What do you think about this video? Yes, Daniel, go on. Daniel, unmute yourself. Daniel, we'll go to Daniel first. And then I would like to also call on some people who will not be speaking. So I'll just read, I'll look through your name and mention your name. So everybody should be ready to answer this. Yes, Daniel, go on. We are listening to you.
Okay.
Who is speaking, please? Daniel? Daniel, we can't hear you. So, Maxwell, you spoke already, so let me go to Ishaku, I beg. So, Ishaku, go on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but you can speak a little louder.
Is it better now?
Go on.
All right, so I think the video, my understanding of the video is he clearly sees the problem, and he's looking at the problem from a solutions perspective. One of the things he mentioned in the video was that he has a dream that one day on the hills of Georgia, both former slaves and free men will be able to negotiate, sit down at the same negotiation table. So he's looking at the problem, but he's also looking at it from a solutions perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this, Ishaku. So I said I want to call on people's name here. Is Jemima ready to speak to us about her understanding or what she's taking from the video?
Yes. Hi, I'm Jemima from Kenya.
Okay.
What I understand about this audio is that he's speaking about the human rights, maybe the social and economic human rights facing people.
Good. So thank you for sharing. I'll take the last one. Buddha Herman, if you can hear me, I'll mention you here. If you were with us throughout, will you want to share with us what you get from the video? We are waiting. Yes, Buddha, go on. Yes, we can hear you.
Ok, comment dire?
Go on, I mean, vas-y en français, et puis ceux qui ne pourront pas entendre vont cliquer sur interprétation. So for those of us may not be able to understand French, while he speaks French, we can click on the interpretation and get what he's saying in English. So you can go on, Buddha. We are with you. Vas-y, on peut t'entendre. Tu peux continuer en français, s'il te plaît. Hello? OK. Buddha, je pensais que tu voudrais intervenir. Okay, so let me take a last hand. Who want to speak so that I don't call you just like that? Who want to share his or her opinion on the video we just watched? Okay, so let me go to Geneva. Geneva, please go on.
Hello, my name is Geneva. Are you able
Yes.
to hear me? Thank you. So this was Martin Luther King, and this was the civil rights movement. And the video, to me, he's very clear with his vision. So he's already using the vision, and he's using the country, even though the country was against them in a way, like the majority. He's using the country and specific locations, as someone just previously spoke about the hills of Georgia. So people can actually visualize themselves standing in this specific location in the country. And he's doing two things. He's appealing to people's hearts and minds. This is something that I remember we were talking about 2 days ago. And the second thing is he's including the country that was, the majority in the country, in brotherhood. So he's not making an enemy or excluding the people that need to come together for this as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geneva, for sharing. So I think we spoke about having a vision, you have to dream for what you want to see in the future. And that's basically Martin Luther King told us about. And we could all recall that this video has been an old one. I mean, when he had this dream. But today, his country is living to his dream. What he dreamed of, that is what happened. In fact, even having a black president through the former president of the United States. So all of us here, we can dream for a positive change in our society. And if we follow our dream and we take it step by step, we can make it, and then we'll be able to change situation about the climate that is affecting all of us. Sometimes those that we work with or those that we engage, they might not be able to see that vision that you have as an activist. And you need to take time to explain to them, to walk them through it and involve them in the process so that they buy into what you are working on. Then at the end of the day, all of us will achieve the dream. So on my screen, you can see the solution tree as I spoke about. So when you are able to have your vision, just for the example that we took, then more girls go to school, and then you can see some of the solution under it, right? What happened when more girls go to school? So there will be school dropout very low. I mean, girls dropout will not be there. The school will now be built closer to the girls. There will be solution on sexual reproductive health education, and then school fees are affordable for parents. So those are some of the things that will happen when you have your vision turned into solutions. So that is what we need to do as advocates. Get to know your problem very well, identify the problem very well, and then engage the various stakeholders. And my colleague, Melissa, will come in here to walk us through some of the tactics, some of the tips you need to follow, right, to be able to engage everybody that matter, to see to your policy, to your issue being turned from problem to solution. So I would like to pause here for now, and then Melissa will come in to take us through the next discussion. As I said, we are going to be here for 2.5 hours, so we hope that by 2:30 we should be ending. So when she comes in, she will take us through the next discussion, and then we'll continue with the question later on. So thank you, and Melissa, over to you.
Okay, hi colleagues. Farouk, please, I don't know if my screen is clear and my video and audio are clear.
Your screen is in. Maybe you may want to put it on show mode. so that we don't see the next slide.
Thank you. Very helpful. All right.
Good.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much
Over
for
to you.
joining
Thank
us
you.
today on this conversation on advocacy. You know, my colleagues like to say people who do advocacy on climate-related issues, conservation, are the real heroes, right? They're trying to save not just humanity today, you're trying to save humanity of the future generations. So we are very proud of the work that you do, and we are happy to contribute to making sure that this work is done in a more efficient way. So I would start by just asking you and just taking it up from where my colleague, who did a wonderful job in just taking us through the going through problem analysis and solution analysis, and just diving into the concept of advocacy. He did such a good job. I want to pick up from where he ended around the problem around problem and solution analysis. And if you can write for me in the chat, what is one or two climate-related challenges that you are trying to solve? What is your focus? What are you looking at solving? So if I can see that, if you can just write that in the chat, what is your point of focus in climate activism? What is the problem that you see that you want solved? It can be just a word or max a sentence. What are the climate-related challenges that you are seeking to solve? Yes, I see climate illiteracy, environmental pollution, climate justice, adaptation, ending fossil fuel. I think that's the use of fossil fuel. Flash floods, flooding, ecosystem degradation, water crisis, desertification. You know, these are a lot of issues that we are facing. And I love that the first comment that came in was on climate illiteracy, because many of us don't even know that these problems are so close to us, right? Thank you. As the comments keep pouring, I see transition énergétique, I see ecosystem loss, I see plastic pollution, and the list goes on and on. And just to validate this good work that you're doing, if you look at the World Economic Forum report, I think that was for 2023, you'd see that the world's biggest risk for the next 2 years, 6 of the top 10 of those risks have something to do with the environment or climate-related issues. And if you look, if we are projecting into the next 10 years, the first 3 of those challenges are actually just climate-related challenges. So the work we are doing is important. And in the words of a very good advocate, he says, if we don't act now, we would actually lose lives, we'll die, you know. So advocacy and how you go about doing it is very important. In this session and going forward, we will just be talking about what are the ways in which we can advocate in a way that we would actually see change. What are the tactics, as the title says, that we are going to use to make sure that the policies that we want are enacted? So advocates, you are an advocate. Advocates have these 2 things in common. Number 1, they want to see something change. And number 2, they want to contribute a solution that would cause a better tomorrow. I'll take that again. Advocates, they want to see something change. And number 2, they want to bring in something, a solution that will cause lives to be better. And so a way that we see that this can be done is by influencing policy. By influencing policy, you are causing change on a larger scale. You are impacting more people in a more sustainable way. How do you go about doing that? Is the question we have on board today. So I want to throw it back to us in the chat. What are the ways you have been using in the past to go about your advocacy work? What have you been doing? What are some of the tactics you have employed in your work as an advocate? Can we read some of the work that you have been doing? What have you been doing? How have you influence change? How have you introduced new things into the system? What have you been doing? Have you been, I'll give an example. Have you been lobbying? That's one tactic, right? What other tactics have we used? And let's just be very real. I know some of them could be violent and some of them could not be, but let's just, you know, be very real. We have done training, we have done campaigns. Yes, I see them coming. We have done campaigns. Yes, I see outreaches coming up again. Yes. Community sensitizations, engaging communities, mobilizing right holders. I like the word right holders. That's giving power to the people. Yes, engaging the right holders. I see Twitter storms. Yes, social media activism, silent marches. That's powerful. Yes, capacity building, non-violent, direct actions. I would want to ask Betal to go deeper. What does that mean? What kind of non-violent, direct actions do we have? Colloquiums, yes. We have campaign, demonstration, training, you know, I mean, and the list goes on. And those are the tactics we use. The point is that at the end of the day, we want to see something change and we want to contribute to the society, to the betterment of society. So we just want to highlight that on the spectrum. So on there's something called a spectrum, right? On a spectrum from harmonious to violent, most of our tactics that we have been employing fall on the violent side. And I'll show you in a bit. I'll show you in a bit. Most of the tactics that we have been having fall on the violent side. So I want you to think about how you do advocacy based on the diagram we have in front of us. On, I don't know if it's your left, but this is my left, or where you see the red humans or cartoons, you would see that those are, on this continuum, you'd see those are the violent ways of doing advocacy. And on my right, depending on on where you're sitting, where we have the green cartoons, those are harmonious. So as a strategic advocacy person, even before you engage in any advocacy efforts, you need to be able to gather your tools, gather your strategies, and know which one works where. And we would go into that. But I just wanted us to see that these are some of the strategies that are used in advocacy. And as I said, most of our activism falls at the tail end towards violence. Most of our advocacy, but there is another way. There are other ways. Sometimes violence gets the attention that we need, but the track record of violence getting us actionable changes versus the track record of going through a whole advocacy process and getting actually, if you are doing that comparison, you would see that going through an advocacy process, going through adapting different tactics actually works. So not just the violent ways, but using other methods that are harmonious. So you are supposed to build from harmonious this way to violence, not violence to harmonious. Because when you build from violence to harmonious, people are already on defense. The policymakers are already on a defense. And so you almost never get to the solutions that you want. So let's talk about some of these. I'll start from the violent going. We have had boycotts, you know, and there are different types of boycotts. There are different types of strikes. But I also want to engage us and tell us that how many of us know that sometimes some of the boycotts that we make doesn't really get international, I put that in quotes, attention as much because it also violates human rights. So I'm also putting this as a caveat that in using any of these tools, you want to ensure that you are not violating any human rights of any human being. So there are fundamental human rights, the rights to food, air, life, education. So in all of your advocacy efforts, you would yield, yes, less fruits if your efforts are violating any human rights. And so you would now see why when you went and stopped probably young kids from going to school under a riot, you see why it is heavily debated, because it's touching on a human rights violation. Now, we also have demonstrations, and if you look at it keenly, you see demonstrations stand on both sides. It stands on harmonious and violent, depending on your context. Now, some contexts will say if you have a peaceful demonstration, then it is harmonious. Other people, no matter how peaceful your demonstration is, it is considered violent. You need to be attuned with your context as an advocate to know what tool to use, and we'll talk about context in a bit. Now, we also have petitioning, and we'll see most people petition, and depending on the petition, it could also be harmonious or violent. And in a bit, we'll also look at an example of a petition letter, right? And what are the challenges that we normally go through. A big one that we are capitalizing on throughout this conversation is media. I love the comment that said Twitter storms, you know, and a few days ago we were watching the AFCON, and after that, you know, people finished watching the AFCON. We saw the people who won. Congratulations to Cote d'Ivoire, who won. And the next thing was, okay, we have finished watching the TV. Let's go to Twitter and see what's going on Twitter. Why? Because social media has become such a part of us, And if you are able to, it's a tool that enables us to reach the numbers, the masses. In advocacy, whether we accept it or not, numbers is part of the game. In advocacy, numbers is part of the game. If you can get the masses, you can get the power. If you can get the masses, you can get the influence you want. And so we need to learn as advocates, how do we influence media to be on our side, to say what we are saying? And I know particularly for climate activists, climate change activists, there's always the concern of people don't treat our issues urgently enough. There is always that challenge. What are the stories we are telling? Are they compelling enough? Are the stories we are telling showing the reality, or are they too scary that it seems too abstract? Those are the questions we want to think about as we are thinking about the tools along the continuum. And again, based on context, media could be used as a harmonious tool or a violent tool. This really depends on your context. Now, we also have position papers that people write and say, this is my position on the issue. And we'll talk about positioning later when engaging stakeholders, how strong position is, and how you walk up the ladder to come to an agreement on having the same position with an individual or an entity. We talk about lobbying meetings, right? And expert meetings, going for expert consultations. Many of us, when we are invited for expert meetings, we say, oh, it's one of those other meetings. Yes, it may be one of those other meetings, but it is where the change happens. At those expert meetings, the networking that happens around that is where the real change happens. So I'll just round this discussion on tactics up by saying that most of us, if you look at the arrows, we end our activism around violence, silence movements, you know, we end it there. We never move to the point of having policy dialogues. We never take it to the point of getting into the rooms where policies are actually made. We never carry through the process, the many bureaucracies. We don't want to go through that, but our approach that we are presenting to you today is saying that as if you want advocacy for change, yes, these are the tactics you would use, but you would need to approach it from a different way, from harmonious moving forward. And just to add that there is also always the issue of litigation. Litigation is also another issue. And that's a debate that is ongoing, but I would love to hear from you as well. And maybe we can open that up a little in the comments at the end of it. Do you think litigation is harmonious or violent? Is litigation harmonious? Is it a harmonious tactic or it's a violent tactic? So we can have that conversation at the end of our presentation. But let's narrow in on writing a complaint letter, because this is the most basic you can do. And in our experience working with organizations, we see many organizations write complaint letters, but we are not too sure on how that pans out. They don't always have the results that they seek. They don't always have the results that they seek. So what are some tips that we have had in writing complaint letters? Now, before we even go into the tips, for those colleagues who don't know what a complaint letter is, right? A complaint letter is one that you write to just express your displeasure about a situation. So as an activist, remember what we said in the beginning. You have something that is displeasing, something you want to change. So you are addressing it to someone who has the decision-making power to change that situation. And in most cases, it is government. But it's not just government, as we would see. It's not just government that has the power to change things. We would see that there are other stakeholders, and we would see who the greatest of those stakeholders are. But then we need to write and say we are displeased about the situation. It's the most basic we can do. To be able to write compelling complaint letters, we need to know your subject. You need to know what you're talking about, because contrary to popular belief, the people that actually are stakeholders are also experts in some of their domains. And so if you are not showing evidence of capacity, of an understanding of what you are talking about, then of course your letter will be put by the side. The next thing is be concise. As we would see with policymakers don't have time. If you have ever engaged a policymaker, you would understand that conciseness and preciseness pays. So in your letter, you want to be as concise and precise as possible. You want to be professional. And by professional there are certain ethics to a formal letter. You don't want to go personal on a professional letter. And being professional also means you are representing the interest of the people you serve and not your personal interests. And that leads us to sticking to the facts. We are in an age of inundation of data. There is a lot of data around. And so you want to always have facts. Some of the avenues where you can have facts is the newspapers. You can have facts from the newspapers. You can have facts from the internet. You can have facts from the National Statistic Bureaus. But if you are sharing a complaint, you have to stick to the facts. For example, please, dear Commissioner or dear Minister, I write to bring to your attention the negligence of the Department of, let's say, Food and Security. And then you go ahead and tell the minister that 50 children are in critical situation, or 50 children passed, or 50 children died as a result of their negligence. But when the minister goes to check, he realizes that it's true that we lost kids, but it was actually 5. So you lose credibility when you do that. You can't hyperbolize. You can't say above what actually happens. You need to stick to the facts. And advocacy, it is not it's not how much, it's how well you tell the story. I always say that if you lose in your advocacy, if one person is affected, if one person is a casualty to a situation, that one person matters as much as 50 people matter. And so you should be able to communicate the plight of that one person in such a way that the state would consider it pertinent enough for it to never happen again. That is you being compelling. Now, you want to also be constructive, and I'm sure we have spoken a lot about that. Now, another very good, other important tips that we'll share is include your contact details. Sometimes when you demonstrate expertise, policymakers want to get back to you. How do they do that if your contact details are not there? It's true that for anonymity's sake, we try to be anonymous sometimes, but you have to put a contact detail for the policymaker to be able to follow up, because you are definitely giving recommendations that they need more insight into. Now, type your letter if possible, right? Presentation matters. It matters if I receive a handwritten letter versus if I receive a typed letter. The perception of the people matter. And always keep a copy for yourself. Very important for reference sake. So I'm just going to show 2 examples, and I would invite colleagues to tell us what is wrong with this complaint letter based on all that we have shared. What do we feel is not okay with it? Okay, so what could be improved in this letter? Okay, I see. You can actually, I see Alseba Wega. Yes, you can go for it, please.
Hello, thank you for that very nice presentation. Based on what we have just learned from what you taught us, I think this letter is not so official. It's not so professional. It's more expressive. It should be more factual. Yeah, it's more expressive of the disappointment. Yes. And also it should use more official language, and also check on the spelling mistakes, as well as also put in the necessary punctuations that are needed, and the contact details. Just a nice formal official letter to be taken seriously on the stats.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think those were very good remarks. I mean, we have mentioned almost everything that that we just discussed in the previous slide. I think the person who wrote this needs to be forwarded the invite to this training. Okay, so thank you. I think we'll show another one. And then we'll take a few more colleagues whose hands are raised to give us some of that. But before we proceed, I think I just want to acknowledge those in the chats. We see the problem is not stated, informal language, the issue is not clear. First sentence is unprofessional, repeated letters, no contact details, problem not, I love the part that said the problem was not explained, and it takes us back to the previous session. Okay, so let's have the next one. What is not okay about this presentation or this letter? Okay, so can I see Abraham? Abraham, please, can you go for it? And then after that, I'll take David.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
I think protocol is very important in such letters, and you did mention that. You know, when you look at the letter, it has nothing about protocol. And some of the policy framers do care about protocol in terms of how you address them, in terms of content as well. A look at the letter, we clearly see that it doesn't have all of those indicators in terms of the protocol, in terms of the content. And it is also not very convincing. It's much more like a directive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abraham. I think we can all see, I mean, thank you for pointing that out. We can see what you're saying. Yes, David, then Square Maxwell.
Okay, thank you very much, Melissa,
Can
for
you
the
hear me?
opportunity. First of all, I think that I don't see this letter as very personalized. If you say Dear Mayor, it would have been more appealing if I had actually stated the full name of the person, so the person feel like the letter is really addressed to him. And also, in the past, and our approach at Youth Trial International has been always trying to start the letter by recognizing what they've been able to do and achieved. And it's nice to start on a positive note, recognize that the mayor has done some work, even though the issues that you want to address has not been done, but some other result and impact have been achieved. So it's to get his attention, it's important to reference that before you then present the issue. But this letter actually went straight talking about the issue with no recourse to what have been done. And the feeling is that it's like they've not done anything at all. And this will lead to utter rejection. That's how I feel like.
Amazing, David. I love the points that you just made, because newsflash, policymakers are human beings, and they actually relate as human beings do. So no human being wants to be criticized without any in a way that is, no human being wants to be criticized in any form that is not empowering, right? And I love that approach, that in writing a policymaker, you want to acknowledge what he or she has done. And I've had people say they have done nothing before. I think that is not quite accurate. There should have been something that has been done, and you want to lean on that to acknowledge the person as a good entry into the conversation. So we'll take Square, and then move forward, please. Yes. Square, are you here?
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. About this letter, what I can say is that the letter is not professional in the sense that there is direct criticism, especially on this sentence that is saying that is because all government policies are against women working. So actually, the person is supposed to maybe make it a little bit lighter, as like to show a more appealing, what can I say, appealing gesture than to directly say the government policies are against women working. And the other thing is that this sentence, they are too sure that someone cannot understand what this person is trying to say. So this person is supposed to make sure that the grammar and maybe the way that they write is perfect, so that this person can actually see professionalism in the way that this person is writing this name. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love the fact that you brought out I mean, it wasn't convincing, it wasn't persuasive, and it wasn't factual, right? Bringing out what he said about the government, that government is against women working. And it just correlates with what Shepard was saying in the chats, that it's not factual, it's too conclusive. Very good, without statistics. And Martin just said this is dishonest, and many other issues with it, right? Even the language in it. So we don't want to be this kind of advocates. We don't want to be the kind of advocates where our letters are rejected. We want to be keen. We want to follow the right protocol. We want to appreciate our policymakers for whatever they have been doing. We want to be clear and precise in our demand and requests. We want to be persuasive, right, in an appealing manner, in a way in which you would want to be heard, right? So that is it about our complaint letters. We will just move. We would move on from here into a very serious, it's like the heart of our conversation right now. And this is, I'll just give us a few seconds to go through, to just see what's on the screen and gather our thoughts around that. just see what's on the screen and gather our thoughts around that. If you have any burning thoughts, you can share in the chats as well. Okay, so I think we have all gone through this. Do we have any concise comments? Sorry, do we have any concise comments that we want to share? Anyone with a concise comment to share? If you have some comments that are just concise and precise and burning, want to share them? I don't know if I can see your hands up. Let's see.
Yeah, maybe you need to clarify the question. Maybe it's not well understood. Thank you.
Okay, so there's an image before us. So what are your thoughts about this image? Okay, Levin says advocacy is participatory. That's we are all stakeholders. Okay, Geneva says we are all stakeholders. Gabriel's hand is up. Okay, Gabriel, please go for it.
Thank you very much, Melissa. From the two diagrams, I noticed that on the first one, there is the output of the activity directly impacts on the beneficiaries. And there is also a bit of a politics that is there, which might actually at times take away a bit of the advocacy aspect. But I would like to comment more on the second diagram, which has, we need to put in sufficient activity and output, which generates interest, maybe from the presentations that have been given. We should be generating a lot of interest amongst the stakeholders themselves so that they take issue and they support the advocacy efforts that are being put in place. So that when we have the impact on the beneficiaries, it is inclusive and it is also something that becomes acceptable, because even those that will be directing our advocacy to will be well aware of the numbers that are involved and also the impact that the issues have. I think the tree analysis that was given earlier on would actually bring on more of the second diagram. That is my view on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you just buttressed it, hit it straight on the head. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is actually about what you're saying, about the bringing everybody together on board. This approach that we are about sharing, or that we are sharing, is actually part of one of the Change the Game Academy courses that we deliver. And the approach is called Advocacy for Change. So it's an approach. Advocacy for Change is an approach. And it has been tested in different countries in the world and proven to work. We have had evidence of countries having their policies changed because of following this particular approach. So it is one of those approaches that you want to have as an advocate and pursue to have change. And these are some of the reasons. Now, around the development scope, you realize that donors are shifting their interests. You see some donors saying they want to work now with government and all those kinds of things. You would also see that some of our interventions that we have been laboring on are not changing. They're not giving us the results that we want to have. And one of the reasons is because we have put politics aside, we have taken stakeholders aside, and we have done what advocates are wired to do. We have gone directly to impact the beneficiaries. Now, an advocate wants to do two things, not just directly impact and bring their solutions. An advocate also wants to change what is not going well. And the joy, a bigger joy in advocacy is being able to do this on a larger scale. So putting policies and politics and stakeholders on the side doesn't really give us the flexibility, the results we want on a large scale. It doesn't give us sustainable impact that we want, because guess what? The small village that you are, or the small community that you're working in, you're advocating for plastic, proper plastic use and all those kinds of things. If you could take that advocacy on a national level, we would have countries where plastic is regulated properly. And just to say, shout out to any Kenyans on the call, they were able to do this kind of advocacy in their countries around proper use of plastic and proper proper plastic use in their country. So what we are used to doing is service delivery, where we see an advocacy challenge and we go directly to advocate against it. We go directly to provide a solution. But what we are saying is, having the advocacy for change approach, you need to bring in policymakers. Policymakers are the ones with bigger scope. They can make changes that are long-term, not short-term. They are not just for the now. They are forever. When a policy is enacted, when a law is enacted in a place, it is for a longer term. And so the law is able to protect those who are, the law is able to respond to any default in that case. So we are saying that in your causes of climate activism, in your advocacy, we want to present to you an approach where all stakeholders are brought on board. And we said we'll tell you who the biggest stakeholders are. The biggest stakeholder in any issue are the people who are most affected by that issue. Those are the people that have the greatest stake in that issue, if we are breaking down the word stakeholder. And so we can't just go directly to the beneficiaries. We want to bring in the people that have the greatest stake. We want to bring in the government. We want to bring in the businesses. We want to bring in all the international stakeholders that we have. We want the beneficiaries, or in this case, I don't like the word beneficiaries. We want the people with the rights. Anyways, right holders is also another word. We want the people that we are serving to have the power to change what they want, to change what, they want to empower the people within our communities to have the power to make change in their communities. Now, as an advocate, we always say this: you don't have the power in your own self to advocate or make a change. You need to be with the people. You need to partner with the people who have that power to make the change. And that's why we are having this inclusive approach. So what is advocacy for change? It is the deliberate and systematic process of influencing the policies, practices, and behavior of different targeted stakeholders that are most influential on the issue, involving beneficiaries and increasing their ownership and capacity on the issue. For your advocacy to be successful, the people who are going to benefit, or the people that you're advocating for, they need to own the issue, and their capacity needs to be strengthened on the issue. So in summary, what advocacy for change is, it is a deliberate and systematic process. One thing follows the other on how we can influence policies in a way in which the people who benefit from these policies are involved, they are capacitated, they own the process as well. So that is what advocacy for change is. And we are saying also that activities can be singled out, or it can be a mixed strategy. Remember, we spoke about this with the tactics. You can have you can single out a few tactics that work, or you can have mixed strategies all around. But the point is that you want to be able to get to a certain outcome, certain impact that is at a policy level, not just within a very small scope. And before, I always have this, just to bring our minds to local. You can influence people at a regional level. Your policy intervention can be at a regional level if the regional authorities have that power. It mustn't be national. It could be regional. I'll give you a very simple example. If you walk into a hotel and then there is no tissue in the washroom of the hotel, an advocate would probably say, the work of an advocate is to go to the management of that hotel and tell the hotel there is no tissue in this hotel, so that the management can put in place processes and systems to ensure that there would always be tissue in the washroom. Now, what most of us do is we go ahead and replace it. We will go and replace it and say, okay, there was no tissue today, so I'll do it. What happens the next time that you come and the next person that comes? So that is the mindset we want you to carry. Now, if we look at our screens, we are already going into the conversation of having influencing policymakers. Now, if we look at our screen, we'll see Pascal Lamy, and he was the former Director General of the World Trade Organization. This is his response when some advocates came to see him or came to make an advocacy plight towards him. The questions he asked: who do you represent? How many are you? How do I know that you tell the truth? Or you are just voicing your own personal ideas? What we're saying is, when you go to do advocacy, and if you have ever engaged a policymaker, that's why we said, to who do you recognize this? If you have ever engaged a policymaker, whether it's a traditional head or a religious head or a government policymaker, whoever is a policymaker, these questions should be familiar to you. Who do you represent? They want to know who you represent. How many are you? You see the question on numbers. It's different when you tell a policymaker that we are a network. CAN is a network of 500 organizations across Africa. When you say CAN Africa is a network of 500 organizations around Africa, the weight is not the same. Like when you say, I am a single organization and I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. The weight to a policymaker is not the same. Why? They are looking at the numbers for their interests. And how do I know that you tell the truth? You see the issue of legitimacy coming in, factual, or you are just voicing your own personal ideas, because we are in a world where everybody has an opinion. And so the policymakers want to be sure that you are not just voicing your own personal ideas. Now, these are the questions that you would have when you meet policymakers. How do you prepare yourself to be able to answer these questions? We have a set of principles that we have put together to equip our advocates. When you equip yourself with these principles, you would have answers to all these questions that are being asked. We call those principles the CLASP principle. CLASP principle. I'll just invite us at this point in the chat to write in the chat CLASP principles. As an advocate, you want to imbibe the CLASP principles. You want to know it, you want to live by it if you want to make an impact. So I'll invite you in the chat, just write CLASP principles. CLASP principles. Thank you. I see Charles, my colleague, he wrote CLASP principles. You just write CLASP principles in the chat. CLASP principles, yes, CLASP. Thank you, Annette. Awalu, CLASP principles, and who would go deep into that. What does that mean? Enoch, thank you. Yes, we are going into CLASP principles. As an advocate, thank you, colleagues. As an advocate, you want to live in a way that represents the values that you hold. Already the term advocate means that you are speaking on behalf of a people. And so you want to position yourself in a way that represents the people that you are speaking about or you're speaking on behalf of. You want to speak in a way, you want to represent yourself in a way that is acceptable to the policymaker. Now, one thing you want to demonstrate, and we'll go into this a little, is credibility. Every policymaker wants to see your credibility. And we would see in very soon that credibility answers the question, why should I trust you? And so I want you to be thinking about your own policy issues. And we want to ask, and you're asking yourself, why should the policymaker trust you? Why should you be listened to? What about you has demonstrated that you could be trusted? The next thing, legitimacy. Legitimacy answers the question, what has given you the right to intervene? What right do you have to intervene, right? How much have you engaged the participants that you are working with? How representative are you? Accountability. Have you demonstrated that you are accountable to the constituency that you serve, and you are also accountable to the state in which you are? Service-orientedness. Are you there to be served, or are you there to serve? What kind of a leader are you? Are you the kind of person that says a thing and does it? That is what leaders want to hear. Power-based, and just to touch again on service-oriented, I think we'll talk about it a little, but policymakers want people that can do the job. So they want to know that you can do the job. You are good, you have the ability and the willingness to do the job. Now, power-based, very important. As an advocate, where does your power lie? What power do you have? Who do you have power with? And what power do you have to do? What can you do based on the power you have? You don't have power to do everything, but if you know what you have power to do, you will do it more effectively. Now, so let's dive a little deeper into these principles. So we have credibility. We have answered the question, why would people trust you? As an organization, as an institution, as a network, as an advocate, you need to be able to answer when you're going before a policymaker. You should be able to things that touch on your credibility. That's why when you see a policymaker, one of the things you hear people saying, we have been existing for the past 5 years. What does that show you? That you have resilience. You are resilient. You can stay long. Why should people trust you? Because you have been able to do this, and this. You're showing us a track record of stuff that you have been able to do. The next thing, legitimacy. Who or what gives you the right to intervene? The people that are part of your members, the people that are your members, do they have genuine rights to interfere in this issue? In some areas, and to some extent, you see registered organizations say, I am registered under this, so I have the right to intervene within this constituency. If you are not a registered organization, you can still say, I have authorization by the chief of this community as a community group to operate in this constituency. But what gives you the right to intervene? Now, under legitimacy, we want to see how much are the beneficiaries going to participate in this. The more beneficiaries, the more legitimate you appear. Now, accountability. How do we prove that you are credible and legitimate? How have you demonstrated transparency towards the people, the decision makers, upward and downward, not just downward, but also upward? How are you being helpful? That's service-orientedness. You have to have a win-win attitude. You have to be timely in your intervention and keep your promises. As an advocate, you have to keep your promises. Now, sometimes some advocates have the challenge that the people they're advocating for are the people that are advocating against them, So you want to be sure that if you are making promises to people, you are keeping them as well. Now, power, and we have spoken, power is mostly what is your power and how do you use it? You have power. There is a power you have. Nobody can take it away from you. What is that power? That is your power within. That is the power that is central to you. As an individual, as an institution, as a network, there is some power that you have. Because the power of expertise. It could be power based on information. It could be power based on longevity. But what is your unique power? What is it that you have power? What is that power that is within you? You have power too. So power two is, what do you have power to do? You don't have the power to do anything, everything, but you have the power to do something. Now there's power over. There are some people that you serve that you have some sort of power over, and you should be able to know how to leverage that power in your advocacy work. Power with. There are some people that you have the power to partner with to be able to engage on the different advocacy endeavors that you have. Are you leveraging on those power, on the various dimensions of power that you have? How are you using your power as an advocate? So just to recap again, for you to engage policymakers, for you to be able to have your way with policymakers, you need to demonstrate all of these things, not some, all of them. So we always say that class, as an advocate, you should always have clasp. And that's why I asked us to write it so that we can remember it, clasp. Just remember it. And so next time when you're going to engage a policymaker, you want to demonstrate clasp. Now, we have what we call the advocacy cycle. And I love what my colleague did. He really explains the problem tree in a very explicit and simple way for us to all relate. We could all relate with what he was saying. Now, there's a cycle for advocacy. Most advocacy engagements, they go through this cycle. And that's what we're going to be talking about here. With the first thing is problem identification, as he said. You need to identify a problem. And the problem with us advocates is that we identify too many problems. Identify the problem and stick to one or two. But for your advocacy cause, you need to stick to one problem at a time. What is the most burning issue? That was he said, which one is the root cause? That's why you do go through the whole problem tree analysis. Which one is the most burning of those problems? Which one is the most decisive of those problems? Which one is the heart, the central problem? If we solve this one, then we know that many of these other problems will disappear. You need to be able to identify that one. When you do that, when you identify that problem, you carry out a thorough analysis of the problem, right? You go deeper. And at this point, we would see that it's at this point that you identify a policy issue. As an advocate, you can't advocate without a policy issue. You need a policy issue to advocate with. You need to advocate with a policy issue, because almost every problem is rotates around a certain policy, either a policy default or the absence of a policy. So most of your advocacy is because they are not implementing a policy right, or there's no policy to begin with, right? So you want to identify the problem. One of the things that make you lose credibility quickly before a stakeholder or a policymaker is if you go and stand before the policymaker and say this policy does not exist when it actually exists. It makes you lose credibility so quickly. So you want to analyze your problem and actually identify your policy issue. Now, context matters. Context is very important in advocacy. What works in Nigeria will not work in Algeria. What works in Ghana will not work in Togo. The context is different. The cultural beliefs are different. So in your context analysis, you want to know what the people even believe about the challenge that you are going to solve. We have had issues of people advocating, and sometimes activists even lose their own lives because they are advocating what their causes are very legit. But the attitude of the people at that time does not tie with the voice of the advocate. And so if you do a proper context analysis, your approach to the community would be different. And this is mostly for those who work around conservation issues and mining issues. Sometimes the people that are fighting you are the community, the people that are most affected are the people that are also fighting you, right? So in that case, your advocacy approach will be different altogether. You need to get tactics to win your stakeholders on board And who are your stakeholders in this case? Those who are affected. They may be allies and they can also be opponents. So you want to evaluate your context very well. You want to strategize. And at this point, this is where we bring together all the tactics we have been speaking about to strategize. Where do we place this? Where do we place it? After we have your context, now you strategize. Where do we place this? Where do we place this? And then you plan. When you strategize, okay, this is the tactic we are going to use. This is now how we are going to go about it, right? So strategize will tell you what, planning will tell you how to go about it. Now you prepare your deliverables, which is basically if you're doing a letter, if you're going to have a banner, all those things, you prepare your deliverables, and then you do your message delivery. And we'll talk about message delivery in a bit. Your message delivery, maybe I should just give something small on this here. Your message delivery is, what is it that we want? So after you have identified your problem, there is a message that will come out. So our message is, for example, stop deforestation. That is our message delivery. Stop deforestation. And it will just end there. Stop. It needs to be short. People need to remember it and all that. I always say one of the highest advocacy taglines that we like is NSAS. It was short, easy. You could remember it at every point, right? So you want to also do that. And this is very important. As advocates, we forget to evaluate. We forget to learn, right, from what we have. So you want to learn. You want to learn. And if you realize at this point that you have not yet had the solutions that you want, you need to go back to problem analysis, because the problem is already identified. So you go back to analyze your problem. Maybe at that point, something happens. So that's why you are not having the outcomes. Now, we just want to add that at this point of the problem analysis, what you have as the outcome there is a policy issue. You want to have a policy issue. When you're taking it to a stakeholder, you are going to be speaking about a policy issue. Now, after doing a context analysis, that's why I said we'll come back to messaging. You would have to speak about an early message. So an early message is, what is the thing? We have the problem, we know the context. So what's the message that we are going to share with our stakeholders, that early message? And once you decide to have that early message, now you strategize on how to get it to your different stakeholders. But now you don't end out at an early message. You also have a plan. So the outcome of the planning is a plan. But you now also have a final message. By the time you're having your final message, things are already succinct. It is already clear. You know who is for you. You have spoken to other stakeholders that have given you more insights. And so the message you are sending is clear. It's not putting anybody in trouble. It is actionable enough for us to work with. Okay, but at the heart of all of this, so at the heart of all of this, you have to remember to do your evaluation. Make sure that you evaluate your work that you are doing. Yes, I was saying that at the heart of this is, what do we think is at the heart of this? Out of what do we think is at the heart of this? At the heart of all of this, what do we think is at the heart of our cycle, our advocacy cycle? At the heart of it, what is the key consideration that we're supposed to have at the heart of our advocacy cycle? If you have it, you can just, I see, it's something we have spoken about. I see someone, yeah, I see change, impact, change. No, those are not the answers. We have spoken about it. At the heart of it, what is the key consideration you're supposed to have? What is the thing you're supposed to have? Let's see. The message? No, we have not the message. Climate change? No. Communication? No. Vision? No. We have spoken about it. I'm waiting for the answer. Policy change? No. Policy change is the result, yes. But what is the thing? All these actions, what should we be? Or what if I say it, you would know the answer. At the heart of this, not learning, it starts with a C. What? Yeah. Longe got it. Class. Please, let's clap for. Did I pronounce your name well? Bine Longe. Hembo. That's so good. At the heart of this is clasp. At the heart of this is clasp. We need to demonstrate the principles. At every point in time around this policy, you must be demonstrating clasp for you to be able to have your intervention. So at this point, we would take some questions, and then before continuing. So yes, over to you. Any questions? See any hands, and a wise man used to say, when you don't see any hands, it's either you were crystal clear or you were crystal clear. So I'll take it that we were crystal clear. Okay, so let's go through. If there's any question, you can drop in the chats, and then we will take it again at the end. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing is we want to talk about stakeholders, because remember at the area of talking of strategy, we said that that's where you engage stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people, like they are the numbers you carry along. They can give you credibility. They can give you legitimacy. So stakeholders are crucial in your work as an advocate. And before we even go there, I want to say this. Your opponent is not your enemy. Remember, we said we are not going to be personal about our advocacy work. Your opponent is not your enemy, and we will see that in our conversation with stakeholders. So, who are stakeholders? It is someone who has real or potential interest in a policy intervention. So, anyone with an interest or a stake is called a stakeholder. So it could also be anyone who can affect the change in the policy intervention arena. It could be positively or negatively. That's why I started by saying the fact that someone is your opponent doesn't mean that you can't work with that person. Doesn't mean that that person is not your stakeholder. It could be positive or negative. Now, in the case of peace and security, guess what? Do you know that most times the people that are termed terrorists, they sometimes use us, for their publicity. When they go and do some things, they put the videos online and then we're sharing it. We don't agree with terrorist actions, but then we are sharing it, so we become their stakeholders when they are doing their stakeholder analysis. I've never been among them, but then we know that we who share. By we, I just mean generally people who share. They are part of the stakeholders. So I mean, you need to be creative about this. Your stakeholders are not just the positive, they are also the negative. And your work is to convert those who are negative onto the positive. Now, those also who could be affected by the change, they could win or lose something. Those are stakeholders. Okay. So we could have primary, secondary, or key primary, secondary. Those are your key stakeholders. They're the primary or the secondary stakeholders. Those are those that are at the heart of the intervention. Those who are affected, remember by what we said, those who are affected by the issue, and those who those effects also affect, right? Now, today is Valentine's Day, and so we could not have this picture here today. We needed to have this picture. So happy Valentine's Day to those celebrating. We have a picture on our screen, and it's very clear what it is, but we'll pretend like we don't know what's going on in the picture. And we just want someone, if you can just share with us tell us what's happening in the picture, and tell us who the stakeholders in this picture are. The stakeholders are not just those who are here. The stakeholders are just the stakeholders in this kind of picture. So does anybody want to take that? Tell us what's going on, what you think is going on here, and then you can tell us who the stakeholders in this are. So we'll use this for our stakeholder analysis.
Yeah, thank you so much, Melissa. Please, colleagues, I mean, we want to make it as interactive as possible. So feel free to just raise your hand and speak, right? Though we can also read from the chat, but want to hear your voice, your beautiful voices. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Farouk. Okay, Ugunzi patient, please go for it. Tell us what you see. Those in the chat are not telling us what they see.
Yeah. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, please, you're
Hello?
audible. Yes.
Yeah. I think the stakeholders are the bride and bridegroom and the family members. I mean, first of all, I can see the bride and bridegroom, but I have a problem to identify if it's a family member, the one who's on the right. But first of all, it's the bride and bridegroom, and those who were accompanying them are not more interested. The family members, the person on the right, maybe. Thank you.
You can see the bride and the groom and their family members.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that, for sharing. You shared with us, so thank you so much. I'm trying to see, some people are asking us who the groom is in the picture, so we won't answer that question right now. but as you shared, yes, this is a wedding, and there's a bride and the groom, and there are different stakeholders, and I love that we are sharing the different stakeholders, leaders. I see church leaders, family members, friends. Even though we would have loved to hear your voice, Ache William. The bridegroom and the stakeholders, we see c'est une cérémonie de mariage, les parties prenantes sont le couple, les filles d'honneur et garçons d'honneur dans 2 groupes. So I also see, I think all of them are stakeholders. Yes, all of them are stakeholders. Beautiful. So in the same way that these people have stakeholders, the same way that these people have stakeholders, they are the church leaders. If they went to court, then the mayor is a stakeholder. And some people even said that the former boyfriends and girlfriends of these people are also stakeholders. You know, we said that your opponents must not be on your stakeholders must not be on the positive side, right? So depending on how it went, we don't know. But then that's how you should think about your stakeholders widely. Not just these people, not just the friends, not just the bride, the groom, but every other person that is involved that has an interest in these people. So what is stakeholder analysis? It is the identification of the stakeholders in a planning or change process. So you are an advocate. You need to identify who your stakeholders are. And it is an assessment of interest. I love someone in the comments earlier mentioned the aspect of interest. It is an assessment of their interest and the way in which they are likely to influence the process. In advocacy, power is important. What you can influence and what you can't influence is very important. So you need to be able to know the power of influence of each of every of these stakeholders. We are going to take a few minutes to go into one of the models of doing stakeholders analysis, and I'll invite you and in your organizations to go ahead and do this, to go ahead and try to carry out stakeholder analysis. It will change the way in which you engage people. Now, to be able to do this, time will not allow us to do the group work, but we can go through it and then I'll show you practically how this is done. Now, to be able to identify your stakeholders, you need to define your early message. Why is this So to define, you need to be able to know what message are you taking to the stakeholders to know, whether they are on your side or they're not on your side. What message are you going to use to analyze based on the stakeholders' trajectory? What will you use to analyze whether they are for or against you? You need to have a early message already. Now, after you have your early message, you identify all your stakeholders, and we'll see the table in a bit. Identify every stakeholder, everyone that you think about, the mayor, the bride, the groom, the parents of the bride, parents of the groom, former boyfriend, former girlfriend, colleagues, all of those. You identify all of them. Identify them now in terms of their attitude. So thinking of their interest. So do they have a positive interest or positive attitude or negative attitude? And then the next thing is identify them according to power. Who has most power? You'll be shocked to know who has most power if some of these are endeavors, right? But you want to identify who has the power. Now transfer this information to an allies and opponents matrix. So I'll show you that matrix in a bit and then decide on their level of participation. We'll see what that means in a bit. So if you are attending this training together with your colleagues, you should already be able to, you had already identified your policies. You should be able to scribble your few stakeholders so we can do this together, right? So this is what the allies and opponents matrix looks like. We have attitude and then influence. Now, you can either have a very good attitude towards the problem, not towards the person. And if time permits, we'll do a little bit on negotiation, where you have to detach yourself from the problem. You have to detach the person from the problem. So the attitude towards this attitude of the stakeholder towards the problem can either be negative or positive. Negative going up. So negative, and as it goes up, it becomes positive. And the influence can either be low or high. Now, if we look at the most purple part of our presentation, the people where you see main opponents, you'll see that those who have high influence and their attitude towards your campaign is low, those are your main opponents. But what remains is that they have a stake and they have a high stake. They have high influence. If they say no, it will be no to that policy issue. You need to identify them and put them there. The next people, I'll take it up. Though where you see main allies, those with main allies, they have high influence and very high attitude. So those are your main allies. Those are the people you should partner with. Those are the people you have power with, right? Those are the people you go with in your advocacy campaign. Now, those where you see key influence ground, these are the people you need to influence because they don't really know, they don't have any stakes. They are not against your campaign, right? They're not really against, they are sometimes they're against, sometimes they're for. So their attitude is neutral. But they also have a high stake. So this is the key influence ground. So your job as an advocate is to identify these people and move them to where you see main allies. You have to move them, use tactics to move them to a place of high attitude. Now, I'll ask, this is a food for thought in rhetoric. Where do you think your beneficiaries in quotes fall on this matrix? Where do you think they fall? Do you feel they have high attitude or high influence? Where do you think they fall? So you can just think about it. The people you're working with, advocating, where do you think they have? Where do you think they fall? Now, we'll see that in a bit. Now, this is what an allies and opponent matrix looks like digitally, but in real life, it could look more messy because you'll have more stakeholders and you can use sticky notes with your team to just attach it to the different places. So it's the same thing going on you see attitude and then influence down. Now, where you see main opponents, this place says corrupt politicians, right? I like that it didn't say politicians. It says the corrupt ones. According to this person's analysis. And these people, they are their main opponents, but there are tactics to get them here. And I'll just share that the tactic to move an opponent and to a main ally is based on interest. You must be able to know their interests and speak to their interests. We always say that the greatest political decisions or policy decisions are not made, it can be influenced around policy tables, but most times it's around dinner tables, around breakfast tables. That's where the convincing happens. So your job as an advocate is to influence your opponent. So if you see them as enemies, how do you go about influencing them? It's important that you rewire your mindset to say, someone may be an opponent to your plight, but that person is not necessarily your enemy, right? And then we would see our main targets, the battle mayor. So maybe that's the person, the mayor is the person who is supposed to make the decision, and he's not making that decision. So your job is to move the person to become an ally. And then you have other allies, UNICEF, Buba Dunya. That UNICEF in this case is your ally. So how do you work with UNICEF to be able to get the situation? Now, this is definitely the situation of the problem tree and the solution tree that we saw before. Now, look at this. Where do you think the main beneficiaries lie? Where do you think they lie? It's actually written there on the matrix. You see it around Battle Girls Club. Now, most times our beneficiaries will have a very high attitude towards it. So your beneficiaries can have a high attitude. They want the change to happen. That's what we mean by attitude. But they don't have influence. If they had influence, they will change the situation. Now, UNICEF has high influence, high attitude, but UNICEF is not the one that will change the situation in your country. So you need to partner with UNICEF to get policymakers to where UNICEF is at this point. So that's where advocacy comes in. Now, it's also possible, for example, if you look at the screen and where Bado boys are, if that's where Bado girls were, your job as an advocate is to empower Bado girls enough to the point where they get to a place of high attitude. Because if people are empowered enough, they would know what to want, and they would go for it. So your job is to empower them to have a high attitude and as much as possible have the influence that they have that they need. Now, the more they come together, the more they are influenced. And that's just an advocacy secret. The more people come together, the more numbers, the more influence they have over the situations that concern them. And so that's where capacity building comes in. That's where sensitization comes in your advocacy work. You're trying to change people's mindsets. Okay. So now we have spoken about influence, and that's basically what we are going to be doing. Influence, we are either influencing your opponents, influencing the people that are your beneficiaries, influencing those who are neutral. Somehow you have to influence as an advocate. And you see why clasp is important. You can't influence. What is leadership? Leadership is your ability to influence people. Clasp demonstrates exemplary leadership. And so for you to be able to represent people, for you to be able to speak on behalf of people, you must demonstrate clasp. For you to influence people, you must demonstrate clasp. And so the whole process, influence is the power which stakeholders have over the planning and implementation process. So you want to leverage on that power that they have for your good, for your own advocacy good. Now, this is just a small matrix. It's like a cheat sheet for you in advocacy. So when you draw your matrix, interest and influence, those people who have low interest and low influence, really, you don't have much, like you can ignore them to a certain extent, right? Because they have low interest and they have low influence. So they can't really change much. Now, the next thing is the people that have high interest and high influence. So let me just stay on this. So those with low influence but high interest, you need to empower, capacitate, protect, because most times your beneficiaries fall in that category. Now, the people who have high interest and high influence. Those are the people you should leverage, you should partner with. Now, there are other people that have low interest and high influence. Those ones you need to lobby. You need to influence. You need to convince to get your advocacy work going. Now, we spoke about participation. Remember, the last part of it was the participation ladder. And this is another advocacy cheat sheet. Most of us, what we do when we get into communities or our own communities is that we share them information. We say, oh, this is the process we are doing. This is the work we're coming to do. And so be aware of the work. So if donors come, they can know that they were doing this work. That's just sharing information. You're just sharing information with them. It's not helping them in any way. They are just receiving information. Now, passive information gathering is you just bring them together in a workshop and then you just tell them, okay, this is what you just bring them together in a workshop and then you're telling them this is what's happening in the community, and their input is not really doing anything, it's not really helping. Another way we even do passive information gathering is through research. So when you go to a community, you go and ask them questions, you're passively getting information for them. But the information is not really helpful. They are just giving you information for the benefit of your research, but they are not really contributing to the outcomes of what that research has to do. So you are passively getting information and they are still not involved. Consultation is where you bring them together, and most of us are familiar with this. We do this, we consult with them, we bring the elders together, we ask their opinions, and then we take the opinions and then take it to the policymakers. Collaboration is where we now go and partner with the authorities within the local, within the area that we are advocating with and for. So we go and we partner with those people to be able to, so it's now no longer climate CAN. It's not only CAN, it is CAN, the traditional leaders of these, in partnership with the traditional leaders of these, the cultural leaders of these, this organization, this other network. So it becomes you in partnership with those other people, taking the advocacy plight forward. So you see that the level of participation of the people is increasing, but the summa of this, the apex of this, is where the communities themselves, they start mobilizing. So you don't need, they just ask you for your own inputs, and then they mobilize themselves and go and demand for their advocacy plight. That is the ideal. That is the ideal situation, right? So that is self-mobilization, and that's where you should be aiming at as an advocate. In conclusion, you need to build alliances with allies with highest interest and low influence. You need to persuade your stakeholders that the issue is important for them. You need to increase the influence of allies with low influence. You need to try and reduce the influence of opponents with high influence by empowering other people, right? Empowering other people. Because when other people are empowered, you see that the influence of these people goes down. So we'll just quickly look at this win-win communication. Remember, we had hinted on positions before. I will just explain this very briefly. Value. So when you are going to meet someone to partner with a person, the lowest form where you agree with the person is based on beliefs, values, right or wrong. So you ask the question, should mining be right or wrong? So that's the most basic part, right? But there's a step above. The step above is that we need to also have the same opinion. So we can have the same values about a thing, but we don't have the same norms around it, right? So our opinions have to come together. Now, when the opinions are together, we need to check our interests. We may have the same opinions, but my interest is not your interest. So when you're partnering or you're having when you're partnering with someone, you have stakeholders, your interests need to match. And when your interests match, you need to check the person's position. Now, I was just having a conversation today and I was asking one of my colleagues, is it possible for you to have the same opinions, but different positions? It's very possible. So in your engagement with stakeholders, you want to be You want to be very keen on the values they have, the norms, the interests, and the positions. Your cheat code in this case is that the golden triangle should be bigger. The bigger the triangle, the more the ability for you to partner with that stakeholder. Now, this is also another triangle that is very important for you to keep in your mind as an advocate. You have government, civil society, and private sector. The two or the intersection between all of these is science and media. As an advocate, you have to know that the bigger the yellow triangle, the better for you. The bigger you are able to leverage science and media, the better for you. I'll put it to you, go to your country, look at who controls science and media, and you would be able to know who has the decision-making power in your community. The bigger your ability to influence science and media, the bigger your ability as an advocate. Okay. So these are just explaining more about what the government is made up of: legislative, executive, judicial. We all know these things. And private sector can influence policy. Civil society is there to do advocacy for change. So this is a summary of all what we have been talking about. We have spoken about the policy. This is called the policy bill, and this is how policy happens. When we start by brainstorming and an agenda setting. We will formulate the policy pre-decision. So pre-decision is when you have formulated the policy, you go to the stake, you have what they call maybe dinners and all those things. You have one or two stakeholders within maybe government, within the others, different bodies. You first go, and this is very important, and show them a draft. This is how policy is made. There is always a draft. You show them the draft. Then they will give you feedback. Oh, no, this policy you're trying to do, it doesn't work. You come back and then revise that policy proposition and have a formal decision. So at the middle, a decision is made. But as an advocate, you are not only advocating for for new policies. There are already existing policies. So the right side or the other side where you see policy implementation is where some other advocates begin. So for some countries, they don't have policies. So the policies don't exist, right? Sorry, the policies exist, but they are not well implemented. So your work as an advocate is to start advocating from where you would see the yellow arrow saying local level going, it's going up. So if there are policies already, your job as an advocate is to start advocating from the local level going up. If there are no policies already, your job is to start from the green arrow where you see brainstorming and take it all up through to the implementation phase. So this is the summary of what a policy cycle looks like. I would end here and take any questions if there are any. So any questions, colleagues? Usu Neo, thank you.
Bonsoir à tous. J'ai suivi avec intérêt la communication. Néanmoins, j'ai deux questions. Je sais que la répétition, elle est pédagogique. Ma première question est la suivante. Quelles sont les meilleures pratiques pour construire des alliances et des coalitions avec d'autres acteurs afin de renforcer le plaidoyer? Je reprends la question. Quelles sont les meilleures pratiques pour construire des alliances et des coalitions avec d'autres acteurs afin de renforcer le plaidoyer? Ma deuxième question est la suivante. Quels sont les principaux obstacles à la réussite d'une stratégie de plaidoyer et comment les surmonter? Merci bien.
Thank you so much. Yes, so is there any other hand up? David, yes, please go for it.
Okay, thank you very much, Melissa. This is a very outstanding presentation that you have done. Very deep and clear and precise. I've quite learned a lot. Very refreshing to listen to what you share. I have two questions. The first one is that how do you handle a stakeholder who sees your advocacy ask or request as a threat, and even though that person is a high influencer, has the power to make decisions and change things, but probably he thinks that if he does that and grant a request, then it also weakens his political position. I mean, this is particularly in Ghana where we have an election period. People are so obsessed with scoring political point and political vote, and civil society is virtually like an enemy to those people. And so how do you still, because at the end of the day, we are amplifying the voices of the most vulnerable and marginalized communities, and we are seeking for the welfare of beneficiaries. So we want to demand for the change, but this person that can make the change think that when that change happens, it will be a dent on their career. Then number two, I've raised this issue in several forums, including when we launched the CSSP Share the Power program. Doing advocacy and activism, I've done that for almost a decade now. It comes with a lot of risk. It comes with a lot of security threats on you as an activist. So how do you protect yourself? How do you ensure that you, your staff, family is okay? And are there any resources that exist elsewhere that we can actually empower human rights defenders and activists like myself and you who are championing the cause of other people, just to ensure that we will live and survive and be safe to control this important work? Thank you.
Yes, I see your hand. Is it Basi? Yes, Basi,
Yes.
please go for it. Yeah, we'll take your question and then move on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Once again, I'm Martin Basi from Nigeria, and I really appreciate you for going deeper into actually, in your presentation, I actually learned a lot, especially the last point in terms of policy proposition. But then my question wanted to actually come in terms of when you are proposing a project and which the last participant just asked the question, so, and they see it as a threat. So how did you go about that? And I think he has actually answered the question. And then another, I'm actually appealing to whether this we can have like a slide, or at the end of the day we can have actually to listen to refresh our memory in terms of your presentation, because it's actually key into what we are actually doing in terms of, for example, now we are actually want to formulate policy on education for state government to integrate educational technology in both secondary and tertiary institution. But we're actually in terms of actually they're having difficulty in terms of buying into our ideas. So the strategies that you present here as actually will really help us a lot into, you know, advocating what we want, the change that we want to have here in our locality. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Basi. You're making me remember a prominent Basi in Nigeria. Okay, so thank you so much, colleagues, for your comments. I'll just begin with Shepard, but it's not our role to come up with policies. So we don't have the authority, so to say, to enact policies or to make them functional, but we have a responsibility to do policy recommendations. So you can actually draft out a policy and then present it to as a recommendation. So you have that mandate. Now I'll not start in any particular order. I'll just do how do you handle stakeholders who see advocacy as a threat? So very quickly we'll address that. So the first thing is you have to reflect how to approach stakeholders. You don't want to approach them like you are attacking them. But sometimes, even if you are not attacking them, and sometimes because of their own interests, they don't want to listen to you. It comes back to these two things: interest and compromise. So you must speak to that person's interest. There is an interest that person has, and if you identify that interest as an advocate, no matter how they are, you can work around their interest. Remember in the triangle we saw, I said position matters, but interest is what matters when it comes to influencing people. And then compromise. As an advocate, the truth is there's some compromise you're going to have to make. The stakeholder may not be willing to go 100%, but he may be willing to go 70% or 60%, and you can accept that compromise, knowing that in the future you would be able to make a further advocacy to get the whole 100% that you wanted. So you should be able to arrive at a reasonable compromise, a win-win situation in your negotiation. Now, what are the hindrances to advocacy? So this is almost like a whole of one of the sessions that we're doing, but one of the most prevailing, and I'll answer this in that was the first speaker's question. The one of the most prevailing that we have seen is that we don't have a long-term approach. The way we approach advocacy is short-term. It is not sustainable. The way we look at it is not long-term, and because of that, we are not able to get to our advocacy goals. Number two, we don't involve our stakeholders enough. If you involve your stakeholders enough, even when you don't have enough resources to carry yourself through your advocacy course, your stakeholders will be able to even contribute, because we have seen cases where beneficiaries have contributed for an advocacy cause because they were involved at every step of the way. So one of the hindrances is that you don't involve enough, we don't involve enough stakeholders. And finally, I would say another hindrance is that we don't prioritize the people who are most affected, that is the beneficiaries, and properly identify their challenges. Now, what are the best practices to build coalitions? So we have interests. So one is you have to identify people's interests. You have to make sure that you have value. You also have value. So identifying interest helps you to know who you're going to partner with. You have to be able to provide value to those people. You have to be able to say, if we work together, what is the end goal? You have to have clear goals. You have to have solid structures where people want to partner with you, and you also want to have what they call organizational beauty. You have to be appealing to, you have to look appealing. So be appealing to the organization. And finally, how do you protect yourself? And that's a very good question. One of the ways that we advise organizations to protect themselves now is to join coalitions, join networks, because when you are together, it's hard to single you out. But when you work alone, it's easier to single you out than to when you are together. Another thing is that it's what you were actually saying. Train yourself on how to protect yourself. We are in a world of digital security. How do you protect yourself? You have to, as an organization, know how to not let yourself be monitored, how to know when you're monitored and all those things. So getting capacity strengthening on how you can secure yourself, especially in the digital world, is very important. Thank you so much, colleagues, for all your time. We really appreciate having you here today. Special thanks to all WACSI staff for all their contributions, the communications unit, knowledge management unit, and yes, we are going to share the slides. The capacity strengthening unit and my co-facilitator, Farouk, thank you so much. I'll be inviting our colleagues from CAN Africa at this point to give us some final words and maybe shed some light on how to join them, because we have just understood that there is power in numbers. So our colleagues from CAN, yes, okay. All right,
Hi,
please go for
Melissa.
it. Yes, please go for it.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philippine, also known as Flo, and I work in the communications team within CAN Africa. We just wanted to thank everyone who attended the training today for coming and attending the training, and a special thank you to WACSI for giving the training, especially Melissa and Farouk. We appreciate it. We will be sharing the resources from the training with everyone who registers as time progresses, and the information will be available both in English, in Portuguese, and in French. So we'll translate that. And we'll also send out post-evaluation forms just for people to hear feedback on the training as well. And people can join us by signing up for membership. I will put in a link and also include a link with the post communication that will come from to everyone who attended the workshop. You can also follow us on our social media pages. We are on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter and Instagram. It's at CanAfrica_Africa. So thank you so much for the wonderful presentations. And thank you for all the attendance.
Thank you so much, Philippine. We are really happy and look forward to the growth of the CAN network. My colleagues will be putting in the some links in the chats, and we just plead for you to give feedback. I'm sure CAN Africa will share as well some links, post-evaluation feedback. So please go ahead and fill it. And if you need the slides, please refer to the registration link that we shared before. We'll just use your email addresses from there and share the slides with you. So please ensure to register using the link. So we use your email addresses from there to share the slides with you. I'm just trying to get the slides, the link again for you. Ensure to just use it and register so you can get the slides. So thank you so much and see you in the next training.